Good morning, everybody. My name is Chris, and I am an alcoholic. I want to thank everybody for putting this together. This is a real scene. This is very, very cool. Could you imagine if everybody in here was drinking? You know, like 400 of us. There wouldn't be enough police cars and ambulances. You know, so I think it's a really good thing that we're all sober here this morning. Like I said, I am an alcoholic. It took me a while to understand what alcoholism was. I went through a 28-day treatment program. I was going to outpatient. I was showing up in AA meetings, the discussion meetings that Chris was talking about. And, you know, for about 3 or 4 months, and I still didn't get it. Alcoholism is an unorthodox illness. The way that it presents is very, very strange. And there is so much misunderstanding about alcoholism. The people that treat us for it misunderstand it. You know, the politicians misunderstand it. A lot of times, the people in the AA meetings misunderstand it. They think that we just need to, hitch up our bootstraps and grow up a little bit, you know, and that was not really my experience. I desperately wanted to stay sober, and I'm showing up in these AA meetings, and paying the money to go to outpatient, and that was not a real fun thing for me. Going to outpatient, because in outpatient, what they do is they put you in group. Anybody in here ever been in group, where they put you in a circle and they go one after another. One after another, they ask you to share about your day. Oh, my God. All that did was give me more resentments, listening to these meatheads talk about their day and hogging the time. But anyway, it's so easy to not understand alcoholism. Chris always does a wonderful job. He always talks about the common problem and the common solution. And I don't think anybody out there does it better. But when I'm paying people to treat me, and I'm going to AA meetings, and I'm unbelievably desperate to stop this behavior, this drinking, and for one reason or another, I'm not hearing anything of value, anything of substance. What happened was I was on the way to an AA meeting, after telling my boss that I was done with drinking and telling my family, and I went through treatment, I'm going to outpatient, I'm going to AA, and I'm not going to drink anymore. And the thought crossed my mind that it would probably be a good idea to buy a gallon of vodka on the way to the AA meeting and drink it so that it would remind me why I'm doing all this. Like, think about this. I drank a gallon of vodka to improve my sobriety. And here's the thing. That is the cunning, baffling nature of the obsession of the mind. The obsession, listen, alcoholism doesn't care how it puts alcohol back in your body, I mean, it had to convince me that it would help my recovery for me to drink it, because I really didn't want to drink. And so here I'm back out, and it was about a 7-month period of time when I was drinking, after I'd really made a stab at this, pretty much thinking I was hopeless. But alcoholism is progressive. If you are really alcoholic, what's going to happen is over the course of time, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And it got to the point, I'll give you a brief description of what a typical day of mine was like. I would come to in the morning wearing the clothes that I was in the night before, just reeking of vodka if it was the summer, bourbon if it was the winter, because that's how I did it. And I'd stagger up because I'd have to go to work, and I'd go into the bathroom and do my vomiting calisthenics, and throw some water on my face and look in the mirror and head out to the car to go to work. I was a bad electrician at that period of time. They used to say, "Oh, Chris wired your house? Sleep by the door." So I'm throwing water. I throw water. I'm driving. And listen, if you're in the chronic stages of alcoholism, what happens is they aren't even hangovers. What it truly is it's truly alcohol poisoning. You have put so much alcohol in your body that your body is literally poisoned. And, if you have like that fortitude and that willpower and you were like me, like, I work, you're just going to stress. Most normal people would be in the emergency room feeling half as bad, And I mean, my eyes are yellow and I'm shaking, it's just absolutely horrible. So I get to work and, my boss hands out some work. You do this, and, I'm halfway out the driveway and I forget completely what he told me to do. I mean, it's just a nightmare. And now this whole time I am absolutely swearing I am never going to drink again. And hook me up to a lie detector and it's going to say, this guy's telling the truth. He's never going to drink again. Because I really meant it. The hangover or the alcohol poisoning had returned me to a brief period of sanity where I understood completely that I'm poisoning myself with this alcohol and it's got to stop if I'm going to survive. But what happens is I get rehydrated. You drink a half a gallon of stuff. Oh, God, this one time I drank a half a gallon of grape drink. And I was wiring an electrical panel on this house. And, I'm with this guy who really thinks I'm lame. He's my partner. He's my electrical partner. And he's always shaming me. So all of a sudden I'm like, I know I'm going to get sick. And I go, I don't want him to see me. So I tore ass around the back of this house to vomit. And I just get around the back and I'm like, blah! I like stucco the back of this house with purple vomit. And I thought I was alone. And I look over and there's a deck with a family. Like a mother, a father, and 3 kids having iced tea. And they're all looking like this. Mommy, it's the purple puke monster from hell, Mommy. Oh. But you don't want to look stupid, so it happens all the time, You got a hose, oh. But, when this stuff is happening to me, I'm swearing to God I'm not going to drink again. But after I rehydrate, I got half a sandwich down, I'm thinking, that decision I made this morning about never, ever drinking again? It's a pretty strong decision. Like, never, ever. That might have to be modified, that decision. As a matter of fact, I think I should probably stop at the liquor store on the way home today because, getting through work was really tough today. And I needed to. So I'd stop and I'd buy another quart of booze and this whole thing would happen again. And I could not get off of this. Every bit of quality in my life was just destroyed by this alcoholism. I couldn't be a husband. I couldn't be a father. I couldn't be a decent worker. I couldn't have friends. My world was getting smaller and smaller and smaller every day, week, and month that went by, suffering from this alcoholism. Now, the worst thing I think up to today that's ever happened was my last drunk. During this last drunk, I went into a 3 or 4 day blackout, and it was Christmas, and I'm at my mother's house, and there's sisters, brothers, and nieces and nephews, and cats and everything over, and the stockings are hung by the chimney with care, and there's the Yule log is burning, and Christmas, they're playing the piano and singing Christmas carols. And my Christmas drink, anybody in here have a Christmas drink? Johnny Walker Black. That's my Christmas drink. And I drank a couple of bottles of that, and I hear tell, that I started threatening them all, and I threatened the family with a 38 caliber handgun. Did I kill all of you? Because somebody said something, or whatever. And this wasn't the festive type of atmosphere everybody was looking for, So they took their Christmas elsewhere. And I come out of this blackout, and I remember staggering into the kitchen and seeing a pile of vodka bottles like this. I didn't even remember buying them. Oh, it was just horrible. Now, you get to a place of absolute pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization sometimes. Sometimes your last drink is not like that. My last drink was accompanied with pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. I was thinking to myself, if I'm that crazy where I could take the lives of people that I'm fond of, that's really not a good thing. And I got to worry about that because I'm not going to look good in the prison orange. It just doesn't go with my eyes. So I go back to Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, Chris was grabbed by a young girl and kept in here. I have a story that's very similar to that. I show up at this AA meeting. I had to find a flat meeting because I had a car that had no clutch, no emergency brake, okay, no heater core. If you turn a heater on, antifreeze would spray on the inside of the window. No muffler, no quarter panels, because when you're drinking the way I drink, you're just a little too busy to fix a car. It's too much of a to-do. So I had this piece of crap that could only drive on flat. So I'm looking in the book and I find a flat meeting, and I go to this flat meeting and I park it against a tree, and I walk in, and listen, the self-centered fear that is sometimes on us. I mean, when you see somebody walking through the door and they're new, sometimes they clean up pretty good and sometimes they know how to act. But I was suffering from a critical case of self-centered fear. I was just scared to death. And I remember I went in, I sat toward the back and I sat down, and all of a sudden somebody handed me a step book. And I grabbed the step book, and then they go, "We're reading from step 12. And I look down the row and everybody's reading a paragraph, and they're coming toward me. Oh my God! I'm going to have to read a paragraph. I mean, this is how shot I was, right? So what do? You split. I left. And somebody saw me leave. I'm standing out on the stoop having a cigarette, thinking, I don't think I can do this. This is too much. They make you read. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. It's just too much. And this guy, I'll never forget it, Jorge, follows me out and goes up to me and says, hey, what's your deal? Oh, I was drinking, there's like spiders all over me and blackouts trying to kill my family. He goes, well, come on back in the meeting. And I'm like, no, there's a meeting tomorrow night. Now, he knew enough about what tomorrow means sometimes to an alcoholic. So he just kept insisting, and finally he drags me back in the meeting, and the only seats left are up in the front. And thank God they're done reading. I won't have to read. And he looks over at me, goes, "Raise your hand now and tell everybody you're coming back." I'm like, what? He goes, "Raise your hand and tell everybody you're coming back." I'm like, "Well, there's a meeting tomorrow where everybody raises their hand. Everybody tells us they're coming back. I'll do it tomorrow." And he starts to get loud. And finally, just to shut him up, because everybody's looking at us now, I raise my hand right in the middle of somebody sharing. Raise my hand. Never seen that happen before. Never seen it happen after. The chairperson is like, So they shut up the woman that's sharing and called on me. And I swear it was something like this. "It's because I'm drinking, handguns, all these spiders, and vomiting, thank you." And it's dead quiet. And then all of a sudden, yay! Everybody's, yay! Listen to that pathetic bastard. I thought I had problems. Thank you. Oh, God. I'll keep my problems. Thank you. So anyway, what that did was it knocked down a little bit of enough of the fear to keep me going to the fellowship. And I got a sponsor, Fish Food Phil, the next day. And he told me, "I want you at a meeting every single night. And you're going to start." He had a great service ethic. Thank God for service ethic. Alcoholism is our problem. Spirituality is the solution to our problem. And spirituality encompasses a service ethic, a sense of compassion. We really need to change. As an alcoholic, my whole foundation of my whole belief system, my whole worldview was built on selfishness, self-centeredness, self-involvement, self-seeking. It was everything how it related to me, the island Chris. And I think that's alcoholism, that and drinking and a number of other things. But I think that's a beautiful picture of alcoholism. We're suffering from self-centeredness, and we don't really think so. And that's really exactly where I was. So when my sponsors first started to tell me to do these service commitments, that's like an antidote to some of that perspective about everything being about you. Remember when he started asking me, I'm like, well, why do you want me to do that? Why should I do that? And I respected him enough to do it anyway. And that really started to help. But after the dash in step one, that our lives had become unmanageable, for the longest time, I thought they were talking about the car wrecks. They had 9 totals, and drunken blackouts, the DUIs, the lost families, the not waking up in Topeka with one shoe, not knowing why you're there. That's what I thought the unmanageability was. And then when I got exposed to the book Alcoholics Anonymous, I started to understand that the unmanageability really is, on a good day, being restless, irritable, and discontented. On a normal day, being a prey to misery and depression and anxiety and all that, all self-centered fear. And on a really bad day, the hideous 4 horsemen, terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair. That's what the unmanageability is. It's emotional, it's spiritual, it's psychic. And I was suffering from that, going to anywhere from 7 to 12 meetings a week and doing service commitments, making the coffee until the grounds were coming out of my ears. I was the booker over here. I was the secretary over there. I was driving the boobies from the hatch to the meet. I was doing everything you wanted me to do. And I'll tell you what, people were patting me on the head like, Chris, you're doing a great job. I'm seeing you everywhere. You're doing all this stuff. You're doing great. You're doing great. But I was dying inside. I likened myself to like a garage door spring, with that 4,000 pounds of tension, just waiting for the bolts to come out so it can, ruin your hood of your car. I swear, I was always like, what do you say? I was, in the early days, I was afraid to raise my hand and share in meetings, because if somebody would have shared after me and made me look stupid by contradicting me or making me feel small, I would have to follow them out and kill them. And that would ruin my opportunity to come back to the meeting. This is how nuts I was. So anyway, I'm sitting there really dying inside, doing all the AA stuff, fellowshipping and servicing like a maniac. But the problem is my spirit had not been treated. The spiritual part of this illness had not been treated. I was still looking at the world with the same perspective that I had when I was drinking. Now, this guy, Radio Shack Mike, comes along, okay? I found out, like, doing inventory one time, I was the one that was nicknaming all these people, too, It's like, he's like 23 years sober, hasn't worked at Radio Shack since 1990, and people still call him that, Oh, God. Anyway, he brings this set of tapes, 8 90-minute tapes, and he says, you're hardcore, you'll like these, you listen to these. I'm thinking, 8 90-minute tapes, and talking about the big book. Isn't that the book I got in rehab that everybody signed? I had a big book that said, Chris, you're the craziest bastard I've ever seen in your life. You're never going to make it. Love, Harry. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that was in my book from treatment. I'm thinking, how the hell can you talk 12 hours on the big book? Oh my God. But I had a long ride to work, so I threw these things in. And the first thing that caught me by surprise was they started to talk about the fellowship and the program. And they split those in two. I'd never heard that done before. And they basically said, if somebody says when I came into the program, that's wrong, because you don't come into the program, you come into the fellowship and you work the program out of the book Alcoholics Anonymous. And they started to say things that went at odds with what my fellowship experience was. And I started to get a resentment from people from Arkansas. You know what I mean? Started to think, these guys are from Arkansas. One guy's a chicken farmer. I mean, we don't do it that way in Jersey. I'm from Jersey. We share. You know what I mean? We dump and we share. That's how we stay sober, because we stay sober. And but I made it all the way through these. Tapes, and here's the thing: they spoke with authority, and they were using the basic text to back up their positions, talking about the steps. And I had to give that some weight. And then this information just started to haunt me. I'm still going to a bunch of meetings, like a maniac. I still got my service commitments, but I'm falling apart inside. Certain things happened, and I was completely at my wit's end at this one point in time. And here's what will happen if you're really alcoholic, like what they talk about in the book, a real alcoholic. Here's what will happen if you don't seek a spiritual solution. The best one available is the 12 steps. Not necessarily the only one. But if you don't seek a spiritual solution, one of three things will happen. You will drink again because you'll have to, because you just can't take it anymore. Life is just closing in on you. You just can't take it. You will go insane, or you will take your own life. That's what happens, because alcoholism is progressive. You can't just stop and then do nothing. At best, you'll be beyond cranky. You know what I mean? You ever run into those guys at meetings? Kid, all I do is keep it simple. They told me I had to do all this stuff when I came in there. I'd have never come in. And I think you're overestimating, us caring whether you were here or not. You know what I mean? We could have done without you pretty easily. Oh, God. But anyway, I go back to these tapes, because I'm thinking that, maybe these guys are right. Maybe these guys are right. And I start playing the tapes, and I open a big book, and, I start doing the exercise. When it says to do something, I stop the tape. I do the exercise. I go back. And what happened was I wasn't doing this out of any sense of virtue. I need to let you know that. What it was I didn't want to feel bad anymore. I was just tired of always being stressed and anxious and scared and miserable and resentful. I just didn't want to feel bad anymore. So what happened was, in this very imperfect approach to the 12 steps, my spirit started to heal. And things started to happen. And it was more visible outside by other people than it was by me. People that hadn't seen me in a couple of weeks. Well, Chris, you look a little different. Things were happening. And now I understand I was engaging in the recovery program, and as well as participating in the fellowship and engaging in service. The circle and the triangle, the three legacies. So anyway, things started to go really well for me, and I started to learn more and more about the book Alcoholics Anonymous. I started to listen to more tapes. I got exposed to people like Chris, people like Joe Hawk, Mark Houston, a number of people who I later got to meet and actually work with, which was really, really a pleasure for me. But I started to see that there was this renaissance going on in Alcoholics Anonymous, to get back to the basics, getting back to the original text and the original directions. One of the things that Bill Wilson used to say a lot was, the good is sometimes the enemy of the best. And how I picture that working is it good to be able to go to a meeting, and if your tennis pro was really uppity with you, to be able to dump that at the Looney Nooney? I mean, is that yeah, sure, go, that's a good thing, okay? But the best thing is to actually be talking about recovery, talking about the practical application of the recovery process as it relates to your tennis pro who was a little bit rude with you, Let's not continue every single week to come in with the same problems. Let's grow a little bit. Let's grow in effectiveness and understanding, like the book says. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. There may be some people in here today that love Alcoholics Anonymous as much as I do, but I don't think there's anybody that loves it more. I was hell-bent on an incredible trajectory of destruction. And, today things are really going well in my life. I've met some remarkable people, and I'm absolutely grateful for what happened. I don't think I would have made it very long just trying to not drink and go to meetings. I don't think. My case was too far advanced, I was starting to shake myself to pieces. And, the obsession, it talks about the obsession in the book a lot. And it says, suddenly the thought can cross your mind. The insanity that precedes the first drink, the strange mental blank spot. How do you prevent suddenly? You can't pick up a coffee commitment, in the middle of suddenly. You know what I mean? So as an alcoholic, as an unrecovered alcoholic, we're hanging out there. We're hanging out there in the wind. I understood right from the beginning that if I picked up a drink, I was committed. If somebody would say, "Hey, Chris, you want to go out to work tonight, and party?" My first thought would be, can I miss tomorrow? Because I kind of knew that deal, but I didn't understand the obsession. I thought I was changing my mind. I really thought I was changing my mind. I did not equate that with an insanity. And some of us don't like to be told we're insane. I've sponsored a lot of guys, and I've gotten to some of the steps to talk about insanity, and they're affronted. Not insane? I'm not insane. I take exception to that. Well, look back in some of your drinking history. Was it the right move to go get drunk before traffic court for your DUI the next day? I actually did that. I was getting my license back for a third DUI, and I don't do real well with the lights and the authority, and all the cops and standing in line and all that. I don't do that if I don't have to, but I had to get my license back. So I had a couple of drinks before having to deal with this. It made sense. So I sit down with this woman, and I got all my ducks in a row. I got this notarized, and I got this, and I got this. And she sniffs at me. She starts going, she goes, "You smell like vodka." I'm like, "No." She goes, "You're getting your license back for a third DUI, and you're drinking vodka? Did you drive here?" She was horrified. I'm like, "No." So I had to go through the woods and stuff when I left, because of course I drove. How am I going to get there? I always felt that, you needed to have some confidence when you were behind the wheel, Didn't understand these DUI laws. So anyway, so she has to hand me this piece of paper, and I can go down and I can get processed and I can get my license. She hands it to me, but she doesn't let go. She's like, I'm like, yeah, she's trying to protect society. I mean, think about this. I'm not a stupid guy, but where does that rate on the stupidity meter? Going to traffic court to get your license back drunk and I was constantly doing things like that. It was nuts. So when you look at that stuff, you have to understand that there is a bit of mental illness. Now, this is a spiritual breakfast that makes it incumbent upon me to probably mention spirituality. Today, absolutely the most important part of my life today is to do the things that I can do to grow spiritually. There's a number of reasons for that. I think the reasons that they talk about in the book Alcoholics Anonymous is to be a better carrier of the message, to be better equipped to be of service and to help other people. That's certainly what the whole direction of the first five or six chapters really are in the book Alcoholics Anonymous. They're preparing us to go out into the world and be of service and to heal and to help heal. So that's important. But what also is important about spiritual growth is the level of comfort that can come to you. Looking back, really the only way to really know is to look back sometimes, especially in recovery and with your own sobriety, because we learn lessons, and by the time we've learned, after we've learned them, we understand what's going on. In the earlier days, I was so twisted up in self that this particular program, the 12-step program, was the absolute perfect antidote for that. And as I've healed and as I've grown, I've become more and more conscious of just how much trouble I was in. When I first came in here, I was in way more trouble than I thought I was. I just thought I was just drinking myself to death. But it was way worse than that. As a human concern, I was ill. My spirit was ill. Everything about me was ill. So working these steps, being of service, and some of the other things that I do as well as that, have led to spiritual growth in my life. And that's not about becoming a perfect person. It might not even be about becoming a very likable person. It's more about becoming comfortable with your relationship with God, becoming comfortable inside your own skin, and you start to have some confidence and some faith in what you're doing and how you're doing it. This has been incredibly beneficial to me. One of the things that I've really been mentioning a lot, where I've had opportunity when I get to speak, is the chapter Working with Others. Remember when Chris came in, when I came in, really Alcoholics Anonymous had gone lopsided toward the fellowship. The fellowship had become almost everything. If I told someone I was going to 10 meetings a week, they'd be saying, "You're working a great program." And that's how far the pendulum had swung a little bit to the left. And today, I believe that there's this renaissance going on. There's groups like this. There's pockets of enthusiasm here or there. There's big book groups starting up. I think the internet has a little bit to do with that. But there's also people who are finding that there's something incredibly healing in the actual taking of the 12 steps. One of the things that I'd love to see when you see the steps on the wall is to put "actually" in front of every one of those. Oh, God. After I had gone through these Joe and Charlie tapes, however, I decided, because all these guys are drinking on me, I'm going to bring them over my house, and we're going to go through the big book, line by line, sentence by sentence. Where there's an instruction, we're just going to stop. We're going to do the instruction, then we're going to move on. And I don't expect these guys to do anything that I wouldn't do, so I'll do it again with them, So like my first 10 guys, I went through the steps with them, And something very amazing happened. And to this day, it's true. And we're talking the early 90s. Every single person that went through the 12 steps that actually, did a fourth and a fifth step, actually went out and made amends, and cleaned up the past, finished their list or their cards, and started to work the disciplines of 10, 11, and 12. Every one of them is still in Alcoholics Anonymous today. They're still my friends. They're still going to meetings, and they're still working with other people. Every single one of them. And the people who would see the fourth and the fifth step as an overreaction to a problem they really had under control, or they would find amends, make amends to Mrs. McGillicuddy from 5th grade. I can't do that. I don't see why I need to do that. I just can't do that. All those people are gone. They're gone. At least the people that asked me to help them. I don't know if they're drinking. They're just gone. Now, in the chapter Working with Others, it talks about how you approach the new person. It doesn't necessarily talk about sponsorship. What it talks about is prospect. What a prospect is somebody that may want to not continue drinking themselves to death, A protege, that's somebody who you've done your 12-step call on. You have talked to them about your alcoholism. You've let them talk to you about theirs. You've identified, and then they've asked the question. You sunk the hook. They're interested. They're willing to do whatever you did to survive this thing called alcoholism. That's a protege, and it talks about how to take people through the steps. There's been a lot of influence in Alcoholics Anonymous over the past 50 years, and it's come, I think, from outside sources. I think some of it's our own fault. But this 90 in 90, this no relationships for the first year. Anybody ever tried that one, by the way? I think the stupidest thing that you can do when two newcomers get together, two dinglings trying to make a bell, I think the stupidest thing you can do is intervene in that and break them apart, because they'll just go screw up two other people, It's like, and you can't sponsor until you have a year, and you can't do the coffee until you have a year and all this stuff. I really don't know where a lot of that stuff came from. Certainly some of it probably came from the treatment professions, and some of it came from us. I don't know. But where it says in the big book, nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking than intensive work with other alcoholics. I think we should probably pay attention to that sentence if we actually are suffering from alcoholism. That would be saying something like, nothing will so much ensure you won't go into a diabetic coma than taking your insulin. It should have that kind of depth and weight, but it doesn't. It doesn't today. So anyway, working with other people is really the most important thing that we can do. We need to go through the steps so that we can carry the message, because the message, believe me, carry this message. What message is that? The message is, I've had a transformational spiritual experience from the working of these 12 steps, and you can too. I'll be happy to show you how to do that. That really is the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, according to the basic text. So we need to become proficient at doing that. Why? Well, Chris nailed it when he said there's 2 million people sober in Alcoholics Anonymous today. Again, when you quote statistics, I always say, I reserve the right to be completely wrong with my statistics, because how are you going to get specific statistics from an anonymous program? Holy mackerel. What do? Wait outside the door, at the meeting across from the detox or something to get your statistic? Who knows? So anyway, there's a million. Around 10% of the population has the genetic propensity to be alcoholic or have addictive qualities, or whatever you want to call it. Let's say it's not that. Let's say it's 5%. And there's something like 270 million people in America today. How many alcoholics would there be still drinking out there, still suffering? Not all of them are willing to quit, but there's a number of them who are. A number of them get intervened on somewhere in the justice system or the treatment system. Some of them just wander into AA. And what we need to do is we need to be able to give them a message of depth and weight. We need to be able to capture them. We have to remember how sick they are. We have to remember how much self-centered fear they've got, and we need to not do the wrong thing. I guarantee you there are 10 million people walking around today who are drinking or drugging or whatever, who think that AA does not work for them because they went into some closed-minded discussion meeting somewhere. And they heard the wrong thing, or they were sharing the wrong stuff, and they could not put two and two together. How do I stop drinking? By listening to people share about their day. This is not going to work for me. Or they saw the God part. This is not going to work for me. How many people are out there? So we need to become very, very good fishermen. We need to be really good at throwing the line in and setting the hook, because this is a devastating illness. Alcoholism is worse than any form of cancer to die from. I mean, cancer at least allow you the dignity of putting your affairs in order before you check out. What happens with alcoholism is we go out at the absolute bottom. We go out pathetic. And the people close to us either resent us or pity us. And that's usually how we check out. That is a really, really bad way to go out. You know, this recovery process in Alcoholics Anonymous offers so much. It offers so much. So in the chapter Working with Others, it talks about the first visit. What are you supposed to do on the first visit? It talks about the second visit. Now, I had a phone call from a relative one time who basically said, "Listen, my brother's in the hospital. We think he's dying from alcoholism. We think he's in real trouble. Could you go help?" And they lived way, thousands of miles away. So I said, okay. And just for the hell of it, this is a long time ago, just for the hell of it, I said, I'm going to do this old school. I'm going to do this right out of the chapter Working with Others. Right out of the first decade AA, how Bill and the boys did it. I'm going to try it that way instead of bringing them pamphlets. So what I did was I lined up my boys. Okay, you're going to be there from 10 to 11. You're going to be there from 12 to 1. You're going to be there from 2 to 3, all the way through the day, and then started again the next day with new people going in. And I explained to them, I go, do this. Tell your story. Tell your story. Make sure to emphasize the obsession of the mind, the allergy of the body, the unmanageability. Go in there and tell your story. Don't tell him anything. But if he wants to talk, let him. And that's what they did. By like the 8th guy, he calls me up. He goes, all right. Just stop sending these guys. I'm in. And about 2 weeks later, he was our coffee maker. And it was his group. You know what I mean? This old stuff that's 70 years old or whatever works. It works. Sometimes it works much better than these newer things that we come up with, It really does. So literature-based meetings, I support them a lot. I still like going to every kind of meeting there is. I still do that. Even if I think I'm going to probably walk out, not really happy with the way things go. I go to a group now because I work very early in the morning. I actually work in this town, believe it or not. And I get up very early in the morning. I'm usually at my desk around 5 in the morning. So it's very hard for me to get to 8 o'clock meetings anymore. So I'm going to these afternoon meetings. They're almost like the noon meetings, when they have them really early. And I'm making that a part of my meeting mix. And you can hear anything, but things have changed to the point where probably 20%, 30% of the people will have had the experience of going through the steps with their sponsor. They will understand that the big book is the basic text, and that's where a lot of our information and our best practices come from. And then there's people who haven't gotten there yet, for whatever reason. There are people who cannot and will not simply give themselves to the simple program. Sometimes they're in meetings. That's not about the people that drink necessarily. So I'm going to those. I'm really trying to break it up. I've moved a number of times in the last couple of years. That's kind of changed up a little bit of the patterns with home groups and things like that. But I've got to tell you, I think the ultimate dependence that we get to in Alcoholics Anonymous is a dependence on a higher power. What this whole thing is about is it's about freedom and it's about power. When you're firmly in the 3 legacies, the circle and the triangle, meetings, steps, service, and sponsorship. When you're firmly in the middle of that, this is about freedom. You have the freedom to be able to be what you can be, do what you can do, not have that self-centered fear and that voice in the back of your head telling you, I can't do that. That'll go away, and you will be able to do that. You'll become promotable. You'll be able to do things that used to scare you or baffle you. It's about that. It's about that freedom, and it's about power. This whole program is about accessing the power of God and having the actual power of God work in and through you. That, to me, is amazing. And to do that without some type of religious construction around it is amazing, because this is about spirituality. This is about the ultimate power of God. So I am very, very grateful to have been offered the opportunity to come up here. I love doing things with my friend Chris. Jared, thank you for asking me. This has been a great morning. Thank you.